There were 10 medical professionals in the room.
That's someone's job, belly holder.
It's on your CV.
I've been alive.
Just got a guitar in the front, saxophone in the back.
Now it makes sense. You sit them across the room and fire.
Just one shot at a time.
Boom.
On today's episode, we speak to Alex Davis. Alex is a community choir leader, but recently him and his wife have become parents to twins. Not just one newborn, but two. So me and Jordan ask all of the twin related questions, and we had an absolutely amazing time chatting to Alex. Hope you enjoy this conversation, and we'll jump right in. Amazing. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so good to have you.
It's great to have you. Just for a quick first question, Alex, tell our listeners, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What's your setup? What are your kids? All that kind of stuff.
A quick question. That's like a million.
Yeah. Tell us your life story.
Okay. Well, so I am Alex. I am living in Cardiff, but I'm from Birmingham. I'm a working musician. So I work with a charity that runs community choirs for people affected by cancer. So I do a lot of work around that and a bit of choir leading and stuff. And I teach music as well. So that's what I do. And then we've got two little adorable twin girls. So they are coming up to 4 months. So 16 weeks. And they're precious and gassy. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do 16-week-old babies do? Because I can't remember.
They put their hands in their mouth a lot. Sometimes in preference over the boob, which is interesting, which is frustrating my wife a little bit. But yeah, and they're smiling a lot. They're chatting, and yeah. So they're through some of the kind of the worst of the newborn stuff, and into some of the best of the cute tiny baby stuff. And They don't crawl, so they kind of stay put, which is again is a sort of a sweet spot.
It's what I call the potato baby phase.
Yes.
Like they're adorable, but they don't move around a lot, which is great. Like I've got loads of questions about having twins, especially like just logistics and all of that. But like, can you already begin to tell like different characteristics between both of them?
I think so. Yeah. So their names is Gabby and Vivian, and so Viv's the older twin by 17 minutes.
Wow.
And I think Gabby, I think, is quite a chatty and I think extroverted. But then, and Viv seems to be also quite chatty and extroverted, but not to the same degree. So
okay.
I know that doesn't sound different when I'm saying it, but it is different when you see them. So
like personalities are like emerging, like they're there.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely coming through. Definitely coming through.
You've not got a quiet and a loud one. You've got a loud and a louder one. Is that what you say? Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, Alex, so you're a twin as well, Alex.
I am. Yeah. So the funny story with me is I'm an identical twin, and then two of my sisters, I have three sisters, and the two eldest are also twins. So my parents had two sets of twins. And I like to say it's very efficient of my mother to have had 3 pregnancies and 5 children. But yeah, so.
Who's the older of you and your twin?
My brother.
And do you know by how many minutes?
Of course, because he's told me many times. It's 6 minutes.
I was just thinking, like, when you said like the minutes, I'm sure like most twins have this thing of like this badge of like, it's this amount of minutes and like, don't you forget it.
Absolutely. Without fail. Any set of twins, they'll know the difference.
Do you know what I love about twins? every now and again you'll get a set of twins that were born on different days, where that 17 minutes straddles midnight. I just find that so funny, and I don't know why.
I really, really wanted that to happen because our girls were born at about it was over end of like between 2:50 and 3 something a.m. So I was really hoping that when we got to like midnight that they'd come out, but they didn't. So, but they do share a birthday with my wife's father and my grandmother. So
wow, multiple. Look at that.
Yeah.
When like this is a bit of an odd question, but like when you were beginning to try to have like children, did you at that point have the conversations of twins? Like how far in advance were you like this? There could be twins, so like we got to prepare, or was it like a surprise?
Because I thought twins skipped a generation, or is that just like one of those old wives' tales?
So this is the thing. So there are so many things that I heard about twins that I've kind of had to throw out the window. So the idea that it skips a generation. No, but it goes, it passes down on the mother's side. So, so as far as I was concerned, when my wife found out she was pregnant, there was zero chance of it being twins, or at least that was just like super unlikely. And then so I got round to the kind of being excited for having a baby. This is good, because I was a bit like to begin with, but so I got very excited about the fact that we're having a baby, and then went for the scan 12 weeks, and like she was like, oh, there's this one, there's a little one, and then there's the other one, and that's kind of how we found out. So
wow.
And then could you just kind of mentioned your initial feelings were a little bit like, oh, did that calm you because you're familiar with twins? You think, hang on, I've got loads of experience of twins. Or did that kind of ramp up the nerves?
To be honest,
that's like saying I've got loads of experience being a person.
Well, it is, you know what I mean?
I've been alive.
But like you can go to your mum for all sorts of advice and your dad.
So in the moment, I kind of just found it funny. We both did. We just found it really, really funny. And I think ever since then, I've kind of had a bit of a, I guess, a light-hearted approach to all of this. Just kind of knowing that we'll get by. We'll get by. We'll be okay. And my mum does give some advice. She's really quite like hands off. She won't be too intrusive, which is helpful. But she does give like bits of advice when it comes to feeding and stuff like that. But I think the main thing, my mum is just kind of quite supportive of my wife, encouraging her, as someone who's been through it. So I think that counts for more than tips and tricks sometimes.
Yeah. She can really empathize with.
Yeah, exactly.
It's mad because I imagine like from going from no children to 2 children sounds like hectic, and I imagine it is. But you've had the no children part, so even one child's hectic. Like logistically, like what does juggling, not literally juggling 2 twins, but like how do you like
sometimes
when you feed them both at the same time? Like are you just tag teaming? How does that work?
So my wife breastfeeds them. She tandem feeds them. So which is amazing. And it took a while. And if there's anyone out there who's about to have twins, just know that you don't have to tandem feed straight away, because it can be a source of a bit of stress and worry, because it takes a little time to learn how to do. But she does that now, and that's working really well. She's got a nice big pillow and sits them both down like that. And in the evening, we top them up with some formula. So we just do one each. So
when you said tandem feeding, I heard cannon feeding, and I was thinking, cannon? That sounds insane.
We sit them across the room and fire
just one shot at a time.
Boom. That's incredible. So going back to your childhood then, what's the age gap between your older twin sisters and then you and your brother?
They're like 6 years older. So it goes, my oldest 2 sisters then 3 years, then my middle sister, then 3 years, then me and my brother.
Amazing. So you were quite a kind of, I imagine it was quite chaotic then growing up with.
I think so, but I think the eldest two, by the time me and my brother arrived, the eldest two were able to kind of look after themselves, really.
Yeah.
So I think it was pretty fairly well managed, although you can't choose twins, but yeah, for considering, I think they managed quite well.
Yeah. Because the reason I ask is because you mentioned you're a musician, and musicians quite often will come from musical families. Is that how it was in your household? Was there a lot of music? Was there a lot of musical influence from your parents and your older siblings?
Mainly for my dad. So my dad was well, he's a singer songwriter. He likes to write songs and play guitar. He taught me and my brother to play guitar. My sisters didn't take up music, but my brother and I kind of just fell in love head over heels with music from a sort of early age. Picked up lots of instruments, and so yeah, so we kind of encouraged by our dad really. So we were the ones making all the noise really. So.
Is that on your mind of like how soon is too soon to teach them how to play? Like trying to get a guitar between two newborns is a bit difficult, but
I sit them on my lap at the keyboard, and I do try and get their hands to press the keys, just so that they can get that feeling of, doing something. But yeah, I do think about that because I really want them to love music. I really want them to kind of grow up with music. And whether I want them to have a career in music, that's another thing, I suppose. A conversation for another day. But yeah, I think I'd love for them to just kind of grow up singing and just music being a natural part of life. That then kind of, it's not so much I'm learning this instrument, I'm doing this instrument, but it's just that we do music in this household, So that's what I'm hoping for.
that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'd love my son to play drums.
Really?
Yeah, just because I want a drum kit in the house.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't seem interested. We've got guitars. I think we have a keyboard somewhere, but she likes to play on the drums when we go to church.
They all do, don't they?
Mainly because it's loud.
Yeah,
and then you've got like her nan who's like, oh, she's naturally gifted, isn't she? No. No, like there's no rhythm in those bones.
Grandparents.
She can learn though.
If your kid picks up an instrument and makes any sort of noise, grandparents are like, whoa. Whoa.
Where was this encouragement when I was a child?
Get him some lessons. Whereas before, I was younger, it's like, stop making noise. No, that's not true. My mum and dad always encouraged me to be musical, but grandparents love it, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, fan that flame.
but it is that thing. Like, I do think about it, like for my daughter, of like, again, like what you said, just want her to be able to like love music, and then there's like a particular like emotional connection that you have with music, which is difficult to come by in different situations, and maybe it's just that creative aspect. But yeah, I think the day that she wants to learn an instrument will be a good day.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a music teacher, I'm kind of conscious that, the learning of music has a lot of baggage, or can have a lot of baggage for a lot of adults. And so whereas like kids are naturally drawn to music, that's why we use music to kind of teach children how to speak and how to use language and things. So I think music is something that kids are naturally drawn to. So if we can just piggyback off of that and just kind of almost just kind of keep like fan that into flame, the sort of thing, the kind of what's already there, just kind of help it to grow, basically.
I have this image now of when you wake up, you just make the morning a musical. I know that's probably not the truth, but that's all I can see in my head.
Yeah, it's basically Broadway. Yeah.
So where would you kind of advise any listeners? Because what I struggle with in all areas of kind of hobbies and interests with my kids is towing that line of being a pushy parent, but also knowing actually this is really good for you to learn and to persevere with it. Have you got any sort of advice there?
Um, I think that it's the role of the parent to in a sense be pushy at times. So, and I'm thinking maybe when they're a little bit older, like in the like 7 to 10, going up into teenage years, when there might be other things that they're more interested in doing, and they might be distracted. It's like it's the same with any discipline. You
Mm.
won't automatically want to get up and do that thing every day. And that's where part of the role of the parent in music education comes in, is to be that constant reminder that, hey, if you can do this, you're going to make progress. And being involved and uh, actively kind of supporting in a child's musical education. It's really, really, really sorry. It's really integral for long-lasting success, I think, in music. There will be a small percentage of kids who will just love it, take to it, and then become obsessed. And that's great. And it's often those people who then become, career musicians or something like that. But that might not be the same for everyone. And it's in any case, it's going to be important for the parent to be actively involved and actively supporting and encouraging, and in some ways kind of regulating, so that the child is able to kind of invest the time, because kids don't see the long term, so they won't see what the benefit of what they're investing now will bring in the future. So it's the parents' job to help them see that.
That's so good. I'd never actually thought of that in terms of like music. Obviously, of course, it's a discipline, but until you've actually said it, I didn't really click. And it's that thing of you can apply it to loads of other areas of life where, yeah, of course, we're going to have to try and like encourage them and push them to do a lot of stuff. And that is right across the board. And I think that's really helpful of now, like regimented 7 a.m. music lessons. No,
Get up.
get up now. Find middle C. That's B flat. What am I teaching you?
That's really funny. I've got to ask, Alex, have you and your brother ever pretended to be each other growing up?
No, we've not. I think it's probably because we're just too well behaved as individuals, so we didn't really get up into that much like twin-based mischief. So,
have you ever been like confused for each other by teachers, like wanting to give each other a telling off, or you're like,
yeah.
it's not me on
Oh
this?
yeah. Like, my mother would get the wrong name. She'll go for one name and then she'll try the other. It happens all the time. Yeah, 100%.
That's really funny. Because if I had a twin, I think we'd have just tried it all the time. I think we constantly just would have been trying to get out of things or cause mischief.
It's so funny because I remember like the first time I met you, Alex, I don't know, I probably must have been very early teens, probably even like 12 or something. I remember only distinguishing you and your brother between your hair. And that was like, that's how I could tell. And then if I didn't see you for like another year, I had to make sure that it was still the same way around.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to have an afro. So I was Afro Alex. And then my brother he had short hair. So that was the kind of, no fro Joe. That was it.
That's really good.
Oh, yeah. Is there anything that, obviously you're still very early days, but like, is there anything that you're like coming across in just like the parent child life where you're recognizing, apart from the obvious, that having twins is like just not thought of by a lot of people? Maybe it's like a product, or like even like traveling with twins just seems like, It takes
Yeah.
me and my wife, both of us, to be on board to get my daughter out the house.
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think one thing I will say is just in the health service in general, I don't think there's a lot of training given to folks around twins. And I
Okay.
don't mean this in a kind of negative to midwives or health visitors,
This
but
is the place to air it.
it
Exclusive.
Let it
No.
out.
but it's just it is very like common that they'll give you the kind of advice for single babies, and you just kind of have to figure it out as to how that relates to to two
Times that by two.
times about two, yeah,
Just double it.
and hope for the best. So yeah, in that with regards to like advice and support, your best bet is kind of finding twin groups and things. And my wife wanted me to say there's a Facebook group for it's like there's a breastfeeding group, breastfeeding for twins and triplets UK, where you can kind of share stories, and that's quite helpful and stuff like that. So you can kind of hear from other people and who understand what the situation's like.
Mm.
So yeah, so when it comes to advice, there's definitely kind of you just get given this is how a baby works, and then you kind of have to kind of do the math as to how you make that work for two. I mean, when it comes to like products and things, there'll be like niche. It's the home of the niche. So there'll be one or two or three kind of like pram or travel system products tailored to twins. So we picked ours off of Facebook Marketplace. So a double buggy, which is quite cool. And that comes with like, two car seats and all that sort of stuff. And so as long as we can kind of get them in the car seats and dressed and everything, then we can take one each down to the car. And I tried to, in general, give us half an hour to do all of that in order to get out of the house. So that's the idea. That might have to stretch to like an hour when they're like 3, 4 or something.
I think it might be that you might just be competent and I'm just incredibly incompetent. That's the level.
No. It's just like I said, it's just because they can't move yet. So it's just have to dress them. But there's another product which is quite cool. There's a twin carrier made designed in the US, where you can get one twin on the back, one twin on the front, and then it also splits into 2 separate carriers. So, but as far as I know, that's the only one of its kind. It's called the Twin Go. So that's quite cool. My wife, because they're a bit small still, so they can't use them like in the kind of front and back position just yet. But my wife's very much looking forward to it. I can't actually see the utility for it.
Just got a guitar in the front, saxophone in the back.
Okay. So now it makes sense. Thank you. That makes sense. But so I mean, so far, just having the 2 carriers, that kind of that works for us really well. Just kind of to get stuff done and move around the house. It's just So to answer your question, there's just a lot of niche products for twins that you kind of have to dig around for, do a bit of hunting, and maybe you'll find something secondhand as well. So yeah.
Oh, amazing! Sounds very different.
Yeah.
One.
Well, I think about the baby carrier. Like there was a point where Noah was getting bigger, and I was like, "Oh, this is starting to hurt my back now." Can't imagine doing 2.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Going uphill. Oh, that's a steep incline.
Get the Twin Go out. So what was kind of birth like? Because they don't typically, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't typically let women with twins go as long as women expecting one, do they? Or is that wrong?
No, that's right. Yeah. So full term for twins is 37 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So if you get up to 37 weeks, then there'll be conversations about, or even before that, there'll be conversations about being induced. Um, but with my wife, she wasn't induced. The babies came basically 37 plus 4, I think it was. And then she pushed them out. So yeah. But I mean, not like there was a lot of labor. There was a long labor as well. So her waters broke on like the Thursday. She went into hospital. And then they kind of there's a lot of monitoring going on with twins. They want to try and make sure that they've got both heartbeats. So we came into the hospital. They monitored for the heartbeats. Everything was fine. And then because they could have sent her home, but they did have a bed for her, so she stayed in. And then contractions started overnight. And then basically for a full 24 hours, she was just kind of in labor. Uh, at like 10 a.m., it was active labor. And then it was, she was fully dilated at midnight. And then she was pushing at 1 a.m. And then first one came out at 2:50 something. So
Wow.
long time,
What a
long
hero.
time.
Big
And
old sesh.
the surprising thing was when it actually came to the pushing, um, there were 10 medical professionals in the room. So we had the two midwives who were helping my wife do the push-in. There were two midwives ready to take one baby over to the kind of the incubator heater thing, and just kind of check them over. There's two midwives ready for the other twin. There was how many is that? That's six so far. There was an obstetrician, so a doctor. There was an anesthetist who was there, and then there was, I guess, another two midwives. One was there just to hold the belly after the first twin came out. So the first twin comes out, the second one is likely can flip round. So in order to stop that happening, has to be a midwife who puts the hands on the belly, holds it in place until like it's ready to come out. So it
Yeah,
got
I mean,
very busy.
I never knew that.
That's incredible. That's someone's job, belly holder. Is
That's on your CV
is that double the amount in a normal like labor?
of people.
Yeah.
Well, it varies. It varies because we just had one with our first, and then because we had a few complications with the second, there was 5 or 6.
Wow.
It varies, but yeah, I'd say 10 is a lot.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
also you've got that in incredible detail. Well done. That.
Oh yeah. Well, it's. I mean, I don't have a great memory, so I will forget it at some point. But for now, it's ingrained in my memory. So
I remember of our second that Liverpool were playing Leeds, and kickoff was 4 o'clock, and I was thinking, hey, I might get kickoff, and she was born at 16:16, and then my wife immediately, like after giving birth, and we found out the baby was fine. She went and had a shower, and I watched the second half with our newborn.
Oh, lovely.
It was lovely.
Lovely little moment.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Those are the little things that you appreciate.
yeah.
But the belly holder wasn't there.
The belly holder, no, she was holding me. Oh, incredible. No, that's and how did you feel when all these people are like in the room? Were you prepared for that? Did they tell you, look, it's going to be a busy room?
They mentioned it. Yeah, the midwives did mention, and the midwives, by the way, just were amazing. They do an amazing job.
Oh, absolutely.
And they kind of explained that there'll be a lot of people when it comes to go time. So we were prepared, but I guess it was just a lot going on. And bless her, my wife just was absolute trooper and continues to be a trooper. So I was just kind of really, just wanting to try and support her. But then as soon as the first one came out, I went over to the first one just to kind of, be with her in her first moments and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit like of a whirlwind. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And almost it was over almost as quickly as it began. And then it was just, two midwives again. Then and then the babies and things. So, yeah.
Did you know you were having girls?
Oh, yeah. So as soon as we could, we found out the gender because in my mind, there's no point messing around. If you're going to have two, there's what's the point in?
So many like other factors you got to consider.
Got to prep.
Yeah, it's just you got to prep, 100%.
Is there anything from like how your parents parented you, which has kind of influenced the type of parent you want to be to your twins?
Yeah. So my dad's really big on each twin having their own identity. He didn't want them dressed the same. Now there is also utility in not dressing your twins the same. You can tell them apart, but I think it's important for them to establish their own identity. So, it's even down to like the first name that we kind of came up with was Gabriella, but we gave that to the second baby because I didn't want to show like preference to the first one that came out. I just want them to be themselves and not just not each other. If that makes sense, and not just part of a pair. So I guess part of that's down to how I was parented, but also just down to the fact that I'm a twin as well. So yeah, their individuality is something I really want to hone and promote. Basically,
That's amazing.
That's lovely.
Oh, that's so good. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've really enjoyed. I've actually learned so much.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
It's been amazing. 16 weeks in, is there anything that you've learned, any sort of wisdom that you would share with parents first time expecting or whatever? Is there anything that comes to mind that you just think people need to know this?
Yeah. It's really hard on your back. So I'd say just learn some stretches. And strengthen your core because there's a lot of lifting.
All the pregnant women listening are going, yeah, you think? Oh, amazing. Alex, Thank you so much for coming on the pod. This has been wonderful. Really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Parenting Tools. If you like this episode and you are listening on a podcast player, please do leave a rating. And if you're feeling really kind, please leave us a review. We would appreciate that so much. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button and of course, subscribe to the channel. Jason and I will be back next week. We'll be catching up on Mother's Day. We'll be answering your questions and we'll be reading out the funny things that your kids have said this week. So please do send those in. And of course, we'll be catching up on all the hilarious chaos of being dads. As a wise man once said, we will see you in your ears next week.